Quick disclaimer, this is an AI voice, which is not going to be perfect. There is a transcript in the description as well as subtitles for you to read along with. Enterprise and entrepreneurs, as well as many other factors, play a major role in businesses and the wider economy. An entrepreneur is someone who organizes a business venture and is responsible for the risks. They have many roles in the economy. By starting up a business and later expanding it, entrepreneurs will cause creative destruction, which is where new processes are made and old processes are disregarded. This may lead to economic growth as the innovations for new processes can cut costs, which will cause prices to decrease. This may mean that customers move away from the old products that are made with the old processes to the new products made with the new processes. This is known as structural change. Therefore, a role of entrepreneurs in the economy is to improve the economy by improving existing production or starting over with new ideas for production. Entrepreneurs must make crucial decisions as to how they are going to operate, expand, and develop their business. Entrepreneurs put business ideas into practice and are responsible for all aspects of the business, including expanding and developing. Entrepreneurs locate the necessary factors of production, which will create jobs for their business and their suppliers. Entrepreneurs have to sell their output for more than the cost of their inputs. Adding value is what a business does to make the product worth more than the individual parts, which makes it worth by another consumer. The value added is the difference between the costs of making the product and the price charged. This process improves the economy as it brings in more jobs to add value to products and increases the choice for consumers. There are two types of incentives that an entrepreneur may have for starting and running their business, which are financial and non-financial. Entrepreneurs may have profit as an incentive as they have to cover their costs in the long run and have many risks when running their business. These risks include the potential that consumers may not choose their product, there may be changes in tastes and fashions, and there may be better competing products. Because of this, and because entrepreneurs need to survive and possibly provide for their families, they may need a larger profit incentive in order to be willing to take on this risk. However, there are many non-financial motives that an entrepreneur can have, which includes ethical stance, social entrepreneurship, independence, and the ability to work from home. An entrepreneur may have an ethical stance, which is where they do the right thing whilst also making a profit, which can provide them with a unique selling point. They may be a social entrepreneur, which is where the entrepreneur addresses social issues with no intent to make a profit and relies on grants, donations, and government support to fund their operations. An entrepreneur may also want their independence, which allows them to work their own way and be their own boss, as well as being in control of their own work and creating or owning something that they are proud of. An entrepreneur may want to be able to work from home so they do not have to travel to work every day, which is cost effective and reduces risk. Factors of production are the elements and resources used to produce goods and services. These include enterprise, capital, land, and labor. Enterprise is the ability of the entrepreneur to organize the other factors of production and take risks. Capital includes the physical and financial resources that are used for production, such as the business's premises and its equipment. Land is the natural resources that are used in production, such as raw materials that have been prepared for production, such as oil or steel. Labor is the mental and physical human input, which includes managers and employees. Specialization is the process of becoming more proficient in a particular area so that the business can gain a competitive advantage for the goods that they are producing. An advantage of specialization to firms is that their employees become more skilled in specific tasks, which leads to more efficient production for the firm, allowing the firm to reduce their costs and make better use of their resources. However, a disadvantage of specialization to firms is that they will be reliant on specialized employees, which would make the firm vulnerable if an employee were to leave and would have difficulty replacing them. As well as this, the firm will become too reliant on one market and will not be spreading their risk, which will cause issues for the firm if the demand in that market is reduced, or if there are new competitors or their existing competitors gain a competitive advantage over them. The division of labor is where each employee has their own task that they repeat to get faster and better at. An advantage of the division of labor to employers is that their workers will become more efficient and productive at their job, which will reduce costs as less mistakes are made and less training is required. However, a disadvantage of the division of labor to the employer is that their employees will be less satisfied with their job as they will be repeating the same thing every day, which may increase turnover, which will increase costs as they will need to hire replacements. An advantage of the division of labor to the employee is they are able to develop their skills in specific tasks and become more efficient at those tasks, which can enhance their career prospects, leading to higher wages for the employee. However, a disadvantage of the division of labor to the employee is that they will be repeating the same task, which can lead to the employee becoming dissatisfied with their job and being less motivated. As well as this, the employee will have a narrow set of skills, which will make it harder for them to adapt to a different role or industry, which may become an issue if the tasks that they are skilled in can be completed by machines. There are many factors that impact the wider economic environment, including interest rates, exchange rates, employment, inflation, and taxation. Interest rates are the cost of borrowing money and the return for saving money. One implication of increased interest rates for firms is that the cost of loans will increase, which may make financing projects more expensive. As well as this, higher interest rates can lead to reduced consumer spending, as they will be more incentivized to save money, which will reduce the firm's sales and revenue. One implication of reduced interest rates for firms is that the cost of loans will decrease, so borrowing money will be more affordable for firms, allowing them to finance their projects. As well as this, consumer spending may increase as they are less incentivized to save their money, which may increase the firm's sales and revenue. Exchange rates are the value of one currency expressed in terms of another currency. One implication of increased exchange rates for firms is that their exports will be more expensive, which may make foreign customers less likely to purchase the firm's products. As well as this, imports will be cheaper, which may mean that firms will be able to purchase cheaper materials for their production. However, this may also mean that domestic consumers and firms will favor importing foreign substitute products instead of purchasing the firm's products. One implication of reduced exchange rates for firms is that exports will be cheaper, which may make foreign customers more likely to purchase their products. As well as this, imports will be more expensive, so domestic consumers and firms may favor purchasing the firm's products rather than importing foreign substitute products. However, this may mean the firm will have to purchase domestic materials for their production due to the increased costs of imports, with there being the potential for these materials being of lower quality. Employment is the amount of people in a country that has work. One implication of increased employment for firms is that there will be a lower supply of labor to employ from, which will increase the length of the hiring process. As well as this, because there is less available labor in the economy, there will be increased competition for workers, so wages may increase, which will increase the labor costs for the firm. However, consumers will have more disposable income, so consumer spending will increase, allowing the firm to increase their sales and revenue. One implication of reduced employment for firms is that there will be an increased supply of labor to employ from, which will reduce the length of the hiring process. As well as this, because there is more available labor in the economy, wages will increase as workers are more desperate for work, so the labor costs for the firm will be reduced. However, consumers will have less disposable income, so consumer spending will decrease, causing the firm to receive less sales and revenue. Inflation is the sustained rise in the price level across the economy. One implication of low inflation for firms is that prices are more predictable, so firms are better able to plan their future costs. As well as this, firms will have less pressure to increase the wages of their workers, which allows them to control their labor costs and keep them at a low level. One implication for firms of high inflation is that prices are less predictable, so not only will their costs be increasing, but they will be less able to plan their future costs. As well as this, firms will have more pressure to increase the wages of their workers, which will increase their labor costs and prevent the firm from controlling their costs. Taxes are a compulsory financial contribution to the government from individuals and businesses. One implication of increased taxes for firms is that their costs of production may increase, which will reduce the amount of profit that the firm receives. However, if the firm is able to pass this on to the consumer by increasing the price of their products, then their profits will not be affected, so long as their customers continue to purchase their products despite the increased price. One implication of decreased taxes on firms is that their costs of production may decrease, which will increase the amount of profit that the firm receives. However, the firm may decide to pass this on to the consumer by reducing the price of their products, so their profits will have no effect unless this brings in more customers, which will increase their sales and profits. Thank you for watching this video on enterprise, business, and the economy. I'll see you in the next lesson.